Commander Jake Morrison stood in the control room of Sigma-7, watching the stars through the wide observation window. The mining outpost had been his home for 3 years now, and he had grown to love the quiet life on this distant moon. 3,000 people lived and worked here, extracting rare minerals from the rocky ground below. It was peaceful work, far from the politics and noise of Earth. "Commander, we're getting something strange on the sensors," said Amy Sullivan from her station at Communications. Her voice carried a note of concern that made Jake turn around quickly. "What kind of strange?" he asked, walking over to look at her screen. "Unknown ships. A lot of them. Coming in fast from the outer system." Amy's fingers moved across her controls, trying to get more information. Jake felt his stomach tighten. In 3 years, they had never seen unknown ships. This sector was supposed to be empty except for occasional human cargo vessels. "How many ships?" "At least 20, sir. Maybe more. They're not responding to our identification requests." Jake hit the alarm button. Yellow lights began flashing throughout the outpost. "All personnel to stations. This is not a drill. Lieutenant Ben Carter, get security teams armed and ready. Dr. Megan Blake, I need you in the control room now." People started running through the corridors. Jake watched his screens as the unknown ships got closer. They were big, much bigger than human cargo ships. Their designs were strange, covered in sharp angles and dark metal. Dr. Blake arrived, her lab coat still on. "What's happening?" "We have visitors, and I don't think they're friendly." Jake opened the communication channel to all frequencies. "Unknown vessels, this is Commander Morrison of the human mining outpost Sigma-7. We are a civilian facility. Please identify yourselves and state your intentions." The response came not in words, but in fire. Bright plasma bolts streaked across space and slammed into their orbital defense platforms. Explosions bloomed in the darkness. Within seconds, half their defenses were gone. "They're attacking!" Amy shouted. "They're actually attacking us!" Jake grabbed the edge of his console as the outpost shook from a near miss. "All civilians to the underground shelters! Security, prepare for possible ground assault! Amy, get a distress signal to Earth right now!" "I'm trying, sir, but they're jamming most frequencies." The alien ships closed in, surrounding the outpost. Through the window, Jake could see them clearly now. They were warships, designed for one purpose only. More plasma fire rained down on the outpost. The main reactor building took a hit and exploded in a ball of flame. Lieutenant Carter's voice came over the radio. "Commander, they're launching drop pods! They're coming down!" Dr. Blake stared at the screens in horror. "Why are they doing this? We're just miners!" Jake had no answer. He pulled out his sidearm and checked the charge. "Megan, help Amy get that distress signal out. It's the only chance the others have. I'm going to help Ben hold them off." The drop pods crashed into the outpost's surface, and alien soldiers poured out. They were tall creatures covered in thick armor, with forearms and weapons that glowed with deadly energy. They moved through the outpost corridors with terrible efficiency, killing anyone they found. Jake ran through the shaking corridors, meeting up with Ben and his security team. They had taken positions at a major junction, setting up barricades from equipment crates. "Here they come!" Ben shouted. The aliens rounded the corner and the fighting began. Human weapons cracked and alien energy blasts sizzled through the air. Jake fired his weapon again and again, watching aliens fall. But for every one they dropped, 2 more appeared. The security team fought bravely, but they were miners and guards, not soldiers. They had never trained for war. "Fall back!" Jake ordered as their position became overrun. "Get to the next junction." They retreated deeper into the outpost, fighting every step of the way. Jake's radio crackled with desperate calls from all over the facility. People were dying. The aliens were everywhere. In the control room, Amy worked frantically on the communications array. Her hands shook as she rerouted power and bypassed the jamming signals. Dr. Blake stood beside her, recording everything the sensors picked up about the attacking ships. "I've got a narrow beam," Amy said. "It's going through the quantum relay." "Send everything," Megan told her. "Every scan, every image. Earth needs to know what hit us and who did it." The distress signal launched into space, carrying with it the horror of what was happening at Sigma 7. Amy slumped in her chair, exhausted. Then the wall behind her exploded. Alien soldiers stormed in, their weapons raised. Megan grabbed Amy and pulled her toward the emergency exit. But it was too late. Energy blasts filled the room. Amy fell, her body hitting the floor. Megan screamed and ran, tears streaming down her face. The battle lasted 6 terrible hours. The aliens, who called themselves the Kresh, swept through the outpost with ruthless precision. They took no prisoners. They showed no mercy. Bodies littered the corridors. Fires burned in dozens of sections. Jake found himself trapped in a sealed storage area with 30 other survivors, including Megan. They could hear the aliens outside, searching, killing. Someone was crying quietly in the darkness. Jake held his empty weapon and waited, knowing there was nothing left to do but survive. Finally, the sounds of fighting stopped. Through a small window, Jake watched the alien ships lift off, carrying stolen equipment and supplies. They left the outpost burning behind them. When it was safe, Jake and the survivors emerged from hiding. The sight that met them was devastating. Bodies of friends and co-workers lay everywhere. The beautiful outpost they had built was now a tomb. Of the 3,200 people who lived at Sigma 7, only 147 had survived. Jake stood in the ruined control room and looked at Amy's body. She had died making sure Earth knew what happened. He hoped someone out there was listening. He hoped Earth would care. Because if they didn't, if there was no response, then the Kresh would just move on to the next human outpost and do it all over again. The stars outside looked cold and distant. Jake wondered if help would ever come. The distress signal from Sigma 7 arrived at Earth's military headquarters 48 hours after the attack. Lieutenant Nicole Hayes was working the night shift when the quantum relay started beeping urgently. She pulled up the message and felt her blood run cold. The first thing she saw was video footage. Alien warships firing on a defenseless mining outpost, people running and screaming, soldiers in strange armor walking through corridors, shooting civilians who tried to hide, buildings exploding, bodies lying in pools of blood. Nicole's hands shook as she forwarded the message to her commanding officer. Within minutes, alarms were ringing throughout the entire military complex. Within an hour, every important leader on Earth knew what had happened. Admiral Helen Price arrived at the command center before dawn. She was a tall woman with gray hair and sharp eyes that had seen many battles. She watched the footage from Sigma 7 3 times without saying a word. When it finished, she turned to her staff. "Get me everything," she said quietly. "I want to know who these aliens are, where they come from, and how many of them there are. I want it in 2 hours." General Marcus Webb joined her soon after. He was the head of Earth's entire military, a man known for his careful thinking and steady hand. He watched the footage once and closed his eyes. "Those were civilians," he said, "miners and their families. They had almost no defenses." "The aliens knew that," Helen replied. "This was deliberate. They chose an easy target to see what we would do." President Karen Mitchell called an emergency meeting of the government. Every representative from every human colony gathered in Geneva, watching the same terrible footage. The room was silent except for a few people crying. When the video ended, President Mitchell stood up. Her face was pale, but her voice was steady. "We have a decision to make. The Kresh Empire has declared war on humanity, whether they know it or not. The only question is how we respond." Some representatives wanted to negotiate. They argued that starting a war with an unknown alien species was too dangerous. Others wanted to strengthen defenses and wait to see if there would be another attack. But most wanted blood. "They killed 3,000 of our people. one representative said, his voice shaking with anger. They murdered children. They shot people who were trying to surrender. And you want to talk? President Mitchell raised her hand for silence. Lieutenant Hayes, show us what intelligence has learned about these Kresh. Nicole stood nervously in front of the most powerful people on Earth. She displayed her findings on the big screen. The Kresh Empire controls 15 different star systems. They are a warrior species that conquers weaker civilizations. From what we can tell, they have destroyed or enslaved at least 15 different alien species over the past 500 years. How strong are they militarily? Asked General Webb. Strong in numbers, sir. They have hundreds of warships, but their technology appears to be about equal to ours, maybe slightly behind in some areas. They win through overwhelming force and brutality, not through superior weapons. Admiral Price stood up. Then we hit them with everything we have. We show them what happens when you attack humanity. The debate lasted for hours, but in the end, there was only one real choice. Earth would go to war. President Mitchell addressed all of humanity in a broadcast that was watched by billions. She stood at a podium with the flags of Earth and all the colonies behind her. My fellow humans, she began. 2 days ago, the Kresh Empire attacked our mining outpost at Sigma 7. They murdered 3,000 innocent people. They destroyed a peaceful colony that threatened no one. They did this to test our resolve, to see if we would fight back or submit. She paused, her eyes hard. They are about to learn that humanity bows to no one. The broadcast showed images from Sigma 7. Not the worst parts, but enough to make people understand. We did not start this war, but we will finish it. I have authorized a military response that will be measured and appropriate to the crime committed against us. Behind closed doors, the military prepared something far beyond measured. Admiral Price presented Operation Thunderfall to the Military Council. It called for the complete destruction of the Kresh Empire's ability to make war. We will take every ship we have, Helen explained, showing a star map on the screen. 47 warships, including 6 of our dreadnoughts. We will cut through their territory like a knife. Every military base, every shipyard, every weapons facility will be destroyed. And when we reach their home world, we will make sure they never threaten anyone again. That's the entire reserve fleet, someone objected. If something goes wrong, Earth will be defenseless. Nothing will go wrong, Helen said coldly. And when we're done, we won't need defenses. No one in the galaxy will dare attack us. General Webb approved the plan. President Mitchell gave the final authorization. Earth was going to war with everything it had. Captain Ryan Cole received his orders while inspecting his ship, the ECS Vengeance. It was Earth's newest dreadnought, a massive warship covered in weapons and thick armor. He was told to report to Admiral Price immediately. Ryan, Helen said when he arrived, I'm giving you command of Task Force Retribution. 47 ships, the best crews we have, and weapons that have never been used in combat. Ryan felt the weight of the responsibility settle on his shoulders. What are my orders, Admiral? Find the Kresh homeworld. Destroy everything that can fight back. Make them regret the day they heard the word human. Over the next week, Earth's fleet gathered in orbit. Ships came from every colony, every station, every corner of human space. The Vengeance would lead them, with Ryan Cole in command. Millions of people came to watch the fleet depart. It was the largest military force humanity had ever assembled. The ships hung in space like deadly silver stars, their weapons ready, their crews eager for justice. On the bridge of the Vengeance, Ryan looked at his command crew. Commander Alex Turner, his second in command. Major Kate Stevens, who would lead the Marines. Chief Engineer Sam Brooks, who understood every weapon on the ship. Ensign Chris Palmer at Tactical. We're ready, sir, Alex reported. Ryan nodded. He thought about the footage from Sigma 7, the people running, the aliens showing no mercy. He thought about the 147 survivors hiding in the darkness, wondering if anyone cared. "All ships, this is Captain Cole," he broadcast to the entire fleet. "We are going to show the Kresh Empire what humanity does to those who attack our people. We are going to make them understand that we protect our own, no matter the cost, for Sigma 7, for the 3000. The fleet jumped into faster-than-light travel, disappearing from Earth's orbit in flashes of blue light. They were heading toward Kresh space, toward war, toward revenge. On Earth, President Mitchell watched them go. She knew what she had unleashed. She knew the galaxy would never look at humanity the same way again. But when she closed her eyes, she saw the faces of the dead from Sigma 7, and she knew she had made the right choice. The message was simple: attack humanity, and humanity will end you. The human fleet arrived at the edge of Kresh space like a storm. No warnings were sent. No negotiations were offered. Captain Ryan Cole stood on the bridge of the Vengeance and looked at the Kresh military station floating in space ahead of them. "All ships, battle stations," he ordered. "Weapons free, no survivors." The Kresh station had sensors, and they saw the human fleet coming. They sent out frantic calls for help, but before any help could arrive, the humans opened fire. Missiles launched from every human ship, hundreds of them, streaking through space with bright exhaust trails. The Kresh station's defenses tried to shoot them down, but there were too many. Explosions rippled across the station's surface. Then the human energy weapons fired, burning through metal and destroying the station piece by piece. The battle lasted 17 minutes. When it was over, the Kresh station was nothing but floating debris. Not a single human ship had been damaged. "Sir, we're picking up transmissions from deeper in Kresh space," reported Ensign Chris Palmer. "They know we're here now." "Good," Ryan said. "I want them to know. I want them to be afraid." The fleet moved forward, system by system, destroying every Kresh military installation they found. The Kresh tried to fight back, sending small groups of warships to slow the humans down. Each time, the result was the same. Human weapons were more accurate, human tactics were better, and human ships were stronger. The Kresh had spent centuries bullying weaker species. They had never fought someone who could hit back. At the Kresh colony of Varos 3, the aliens made their first real stand. 60 Kresh warships waited in formation, ready to defend their colony. It was the largest force they had gathered so far. Commander Alex Turner studied the tactical display. "That's a lot of ships, Captain." "It doesn't matter," Ryan replied. "We've trained for this. Show them what coordination looks like." The human fleet split into 3 groups, surrounding the Kresh formation. The aliens expected a direct assault, but instead the humans used their long-range missiles first. Thousands of missiles converged on the Kresh ships from 3 different directions at once. The Kresh formation broke apart, individual ships trying to evade the missile storm. That's when the human warships moved in close, their powerful guns tearing through Kresh armor. Ships exploded or went dead in space, their power cores destroyed. Major Kate Stevens watched from the Marine Bay, wishing she could be out there fighting. "How long until we board one of their ships?" she asked. "Soon," Ryan told her over the comm. "We need intelligence. We need to know where their homeworld is and how many ships they have left." The battle ended with 40 Kresh ships destroyed and 20 more crippled and drifting. The humans lost nothing. They captured 3 of the damaged Kresh vessels, and Kate's Marines went to work. The Marines stormed through the alien ships in their combat armor, finding injured Kresh crew members hiding in dark corridors. The Kresh fought to the last, but the Marines were professionals. They stunned the aliens with non-lethal weapons and took them prisoner. Kate stood in front of a captured Kresh commander, a large alien with 4 arms and covered in thick scales. Through a translator device, she spoke to it. "Where is your homeworld?" she demanded. The Kresh commander made a hissing sound that the translator said was laughter. "You have made a mistake attacking us, human. The Kresh Empire has 1,000 ships. You will all die." Kate leaned closer. "We've destroyed 100 of your ships and haven't lost one of ours. Answer the question, or we'll leave you here in this dead ship to float in space forever." The aliens' confidence faded. Over the next few hours, Kate's team extracted everything they needed to know. The location of the Kresh homeworld, the size of their remaining fleet, their defensive plans, everything. Ryan received the intelligence report and gathered his command staff. "The Kresh homeworld is called Kresh Prime. It's 3 jumps from here. They're pulling back all their forces to defend it. Intelligence estimates 400 ships." 400? Alex said. "That's their entire remaining fleet." "They're betting everything on one big battle," Chief Engineer Sam Brooks added. "If we win, their military is finished." "When we win," Ryan corrected. "Sam, I want every weapon system checked and double-checked. Alex, coordinate with the other ships. We need perfect timing for this." The fleet continued forward, leaving behind siege platforms at each conquered system. These were massive weapon stations that could destroy any Kresh ship that tried to pass. Earth wanted to make sure no counterattack could reach human territory. As they traveled, word of what was happening spread through the galaxy. Other alien species watched in shock as the feared Kresh Empire was torn apart, system by system. Some species that had been conquered by the Kresh began to revolt, seeing that their oppressors were not invincible. The human fleet reached the outer system of Kresh Prime and paused. Ryan stood on the bridge looking at the tactical display. 400 enemy ships waited for them, arranged in defensive layers around the planet. "They're showing us everything they have left," Alex observed. "They want us to be intimidated." "Send a message to the Kresh commander," Ryan ordered. "Make sure it goes to their whole fleet." The communications officer opened the channel. Ryan spoke clearly, his voice cold. "Kresh Empire, this is Captain Ryan Cole of the Earth Fleet. You came to our home and murdered our people. You showed no mercy. You took no prisoners. You killed civilians who begged for their lives. Now you will understand the price of that mistake. You will understand what it means to attack humanity. This is your only warning. Surrender now, or be destroyed." The response came quickly from the Kresh Supreme Commander, Vokthor. His voice was full of rage. "We are Kresh. We have conquered 15 species. We will crush you like we crushed the others. Come and die, humans!" Ryan closed the channel and turned to his crew. "That's their answer. All ships, prepare for battle. This ends today." The fleet moved forward, advancing on Kresh Prime. In the distance, the 400 alien warships began moving to meet them, their weapons charging for the biggest battle the galaxy had seen in centuries. Ryan thought about Sigma-7, about the footage of people dying, about Commander Morrison and the survivors who had lost everything. He thought about Amy Sullivan, who died making sure Earth knew what happened. "For Sigma-7, he said quietly. "For Sigma-7, his crew echoed. The human fleet charged forward, and the Kresh fleet rushed to meet them. Space itself seemed to hold its breath as the two forces closed the distance. Soon, one of them would be destroyed. The Kresh believed in their numbers and their strength, but the humans believed in something stronger, justice for their dead, and the promise that no one would ever attack humanity without paying a terrible price. The battle for Kresh Prime was about to begin. The space between the two fleets disappeared in seconds. Ryan watched his tactical display as 400 red dots representing Kresh ships rushed toward his 47 blue dots. The numbers were against them, but numbers didn't tell the whole story. "All ships, execute pattern Delta," Ryan ordered. "Launch missiles on my mark." The human fleet split into smaller groups, each one moving with perfect coordination. The Kresh expected the humans to stay together for defense, but instead they spread out, forcing the aliens to divide their forces. "Mark," Ryan said calmly. Every human ship launched its missiles at the same moment. The space between the fleets filled with thousands of streaking warheads, all programmed to hit specific targets. The Kresh tried to shoot them down, their defensive fire filling space with energy blasts, but the human missiles were too smart, too fast. They dodged and weaved, sacrificing some to let others through. Explosions bloomed throughout the Kresh formation. Ships broke apart or went spinning out of control. In the first 30 seconds of battle, the Kresh lost 20 ships. "Enemy returning fire," Ensign Chris Palmer reported. "Impact in 15 seconds. The Kresh missiles were numerous but less advanced. Human point defense systems tracked every incoming missile, shooting them down with precise laser fire. Most of the Kresh missiles died before reaching their targets. The few that got through hit the Vengeance's shields, which flared bright blue but held strong. "Shields at 87%, Sam Brooks reported from engineering. "All systems normal." The two fleets crashed together, and the real battle began. Human warships moved through the Kresh formation like wolves among sheep, their weapons never stopping. The Vengeance's main guns fired again and again, each shot punching through Kresh armor like paper. Lieutenant Commander Beth Morgan led her fighter squadrons into the chaos. Her small, fast ships darted between the larger vessels, targeting the Kresh ships' engines. Wherever her fighters went, Kresh warships were left drifting and helpless. "Blue Squadron with me," Beth called over the comm. "Target that Dreadnought's reactor section." Her fighters dove toward a massive Kresh vessel, dodging enemy fire. They released their missiles in perfect synchronization, all hitting the same spot on the alien ship's hull. The reactor exploded, tearing the Dreadnought in half from the inside. On the Vengeance's bridge, Ryan coordinated the entire battle. Every captain in the fleet trusted him, and they moved as one mind. When Kresh ships tried to surround human vessels, other ships were already there to help. When the Kresh formed defensive walls, human ships found the weaknesses and exploited them. "Sir, Admiral Price is coming in," Alex announced. Ryan looked up at the tactical display and saw 30 new blue dots appear at the edge of the system. Earth had sent reinforcements. Admiral Helen Price's voice came over the comm, strong and confident. "Sorry we're late to the party, Captain. Looks like you saved some for us." "Always, Admiral. Welcome to the fight." The fresh human ships tore into the Kresh fleet's rear, catching them between two forces. The Kresh formation, which had been holding together through discipline and fear, began to collapse. Ships broke away from the formation, some trying to flee, others making desperate kamikaze runs at human vessels. Supreme Commander Vokthor watched from his flagship as his fleet died around him. He had expected humans to be like the other species the Kresh had conquered, weak, scared, easy to defeat. Instead, they fought with a skill and fury that terrified him. Every tactic he tried failed. Every formation was broken. "All ships, focus fire on the lead human vessel," he ordered. "Kill their commander!" 50 Kresh ships turned toward the Vengeance, all firing at once. Energy beams and missiles converged on Ryan's ship. The Vengeance shook violently as its shields flared and began to fail. "Shields at 30%, Sam called out. "We can't take much more of this." But the other human ships didn't let the Vengeance fight alone. They closed ranks around their flagship, absorbing hits meant for Ryan's vessel. The combined firepower of the human fleet tore through the Kresh ships that dared to focus on a single target. "Shields back to 50%, Sam reported. "Damage control teams working on Deck 7. Ryan gripped his command chair as another explosion rocked the ship. "All ships, concentrate fire on the Kresh flagship. End this." 6 human dreadnoughts turned their weapons on Vokthor's massive command ship. The combined fire was overwhelming. The Kresh flagship's shields failed, then its armor melted, then its hull broke apart. Vokthor died, never understanding how his mighty empire had been brought down by a species he thought was weak. The destruction of their supreme commander broke the Kresh fleet's will to fight. Ships scattered in every direction. Some tried to run for the outer system. Others fled toward the planet. A few surrendered, shutting down their weapons and sending desperate pleas for mercy. "Let them go," Ryan ordered. "We're not here for every last ship. We're here for the planet." The battle had lasted 16 hours. Of the 400 Kresh ships, only 19 escaped into deep space. The rest were destroyed or disabled, floating as debris among the wreckage. The humans had lost 3 destroyers, heavily damaged but repairable, and 247 crew members who died bravely. Ryan stood on the bridge of the Vengeance, looking down at Kresh Prime through the window. It was a beautiful world, with blue oceans and green continents. Cities sparkled in the darkness of the night side. Billions of Kresh lived down there, most of them having no idea what their military had done to Sigma-7. Dr. Emma Walsh, a xenobiologist who had been observing the battle, approached Ryan. "Captain, I've been monitoring their civilian broadcasts. Most of the population doesn't know the truth. Their government told them you were the aggressors." "That's not my problem," Ryan said, though his voice was tired. "They need to learn what their empire did." He opened a secure quantum link to Earth, directly to President Mitchell. Her face appeared on the screen, looking older than she had 2 weeks ago. "Ryan, the whole world is watching," she said. "What's your status?" "We've achieved orbital supremacy, Madam President. The Kresh fleet is destroyed. We're ready to proceed with Thunderfall Protocol, but I need your final authorization." There was a long pause. Ryan knew she was thinking about what this meant. Once they started the orbital bombardment, there was no going back. Humanity would be the species that destroyed a homeworld. "You have authorization," President Mitchell finally said. "But Ryan, listen to me. We're not murderers. Target their military and industrial sites only. Give civilians time to evacuate. We're ending their ability to make war, not committing genocide." "Understood, Madam President." The quantum link closed. Ryan turned to his crew. "All ships, begin positioning for Thunderfall Protocol. Target military installations, shipyards, weapon factories, and government centers. Civilian areas are off limits. We're better than they are. We're going to prove it." The siege platforms moved into position around the planet. Every human ship locked its weapons onto specific targets. Ryan thought about the moment before giving the order. After this, nothing would ever be the same. Humanity would be known across the galaxy as the species that could and would destroy entire worlds. But he also thought about the dead at Sigma-7, about children murdered in their beds, about minors executed while begging for mercy, about Amy Sullivan dying at her post to warn Earth. "All ships," Ryan said, his voice carrying to every human vessel in orbit, "fire all weapons. Show them what happens when you attack humanity." The bombardment began. Fire fell from the sky upon Kresh Prime, and the homeworld of the Kresh Empire burned. The bombardment of Kresh Prime lasted 3 days and 3 nights. Mass driver rounds fell from orbit like metal rain, slamming into military bases and turning them into craters. Fusion missiles destroyed shipyards where Kresh warships had been built for centuries. Energy beams from the siege platforms burned through government buildings and weapons factories. But the humans kept their word. Before each strike, warnings were broadcast to civilian areas in the local language. People had time to flee. Evacuation routes were left untouched. When Kresh civilians ran from the cities, no weapons followed them. Ryan watched it all from the Vengeance, feeling the weight of what he was doing. This wasn't a clean battle in space. This was the systematic destruction of a civilization's ability to make war. Every explosion on the surface was a choice he had made, an order he had given. "Captain, we're receiving a transmission from the surface," the communications officer said. "It's coming from the civilian government, not the military." "Put it through." The face that appeared on the screen was that of an old Kresh, his scales gray with age. He looked tired and scared. "Human Commander, I am Dalrix, leader of what remains of our civilian council. Please, I beg you, stop this destruction. We surrender. Completely and without condition. Ryan looked at the alien for a long moment. Your military killed 3,000 of my people. They murdered civilians. They showed no mercy. Why should I show you any? Dalrix's eyes filled with something that looked like tears. Because we are not them. Most of us never knew what our military did. They told us you attacked first. They lied to us for generations, and we believed them. Please, we have children down here, families, people who have never hurt anyone. Ryan thought about Sigma-7, about the children there who never got a chance to beg for mercy. But he also thought about what Ambassador Laura Martin had told him before the fleet left Earth. We have to be better than them. We have to show the galaxy that humanity fights with honor, even in revenge. We're targeting military and industrial sites only, Ryan told Dalrix. But understand this, the Kresh Empire is over. You will never build warships again. You will never threaten anyone again. If you break these terms, we will come back, and next time, there will be no mercy. The bombardment continued, but it was focused and controlled. Military academies were destroyed. Weapons research centers were reduced to rubble. The orbital shipyards became clouds of debris. But hospitals were spared. Schools were untouched. Civilian infrastructure remained mostly intact. On Earth, Ambassador Laura Martin prepared to address the Galactic Council. This was humanity's first official contact with the wider galactic community, and it was happening in the worst possible way. She stood in the council chamber, surrounded by representatives from dozens of alien species, all watching her with fear or curiosity or anger. Members of the council, Laura began, I come before you to explain humanity's actions against the Kresh Empire. She played the full footage from Sigma-7. Many of the alien delegates looked away, unable to watch the brutality. Others watched with hard eyes, some nodding in understanding. This is what the Kresh did to a peaceful mining colony, Laura continued. 3,000 civilians murdered, no provocation, no warning, no mercy. The Kresh Empire has done this to 15 other species over 5 centuries. They rule through terror and violence. She then showed footage of the bombardment of Kresh Prime, but she made sure it showed the warnings being broadcast, the civilian evacuation routes, the careful targeting. Humanity could have destroyed all life on Kresh Prime, Laura said. We had the weapons, we had the anger, but we chose restraint. We chose to be better than our enemies. We destroyed their military, not their people. A delegate from a species called the Thalan stood up. They had been conquered by the Kresh 200 years ago and only recently freed themselves. The humans did what we could not. They made the Kresh pay for their crimes. We are grateful. But another delegate from a peaceful species called the Vorin spoke against humanity. You destroyed a homeworld. You killed thousands, maybe millions. This is not justice. This is revenge. Laura met the Vorin's eyes. Yes, it is revenge, but it is also justice. And it is a message. Humanity will not allow our people to be slaughtered. Any species that attacks us will face consequences so severe that their civilization will take centuries to recover. We prefer peace, but we are very, very good at war. The debate lasted for hours, but in the end, the Galactic Council accepted humanity's actions. Some species were horrified, others were impressed. All of them understood that humanity was now a major power in the galaxy. Far from Earth, Commander Jake Morrison arrived at Kresh Prime on a transport ship. Admiral Price had requested his presence to witness the aftermath. He stood beside Ryan on the bridge of the Vengeance, looking down at the burning planet. Is this what you wanted? Ryan asked quietly. Does this make it better? Jake thought about Lisa Grant, who had run the civilian administration at Sigma-7, about Amy Sullivan, who died at her communications post, about the children he had watched play in the outpost's gardens. Nothing makes it better, he said, but at least they paid for it. At least the galaxy knows that human lives have value. I keep thinking about the people down there, Ryan admitted. The ones who never did anything wrong. Did we go too far? Jake shook his head. You gave them more mercy than they gave us. You could have killed them all, but you didn't. That matters. They stood together in silence, two men who had lost so much, watching the end of the Kresh Empire. 5 years passed. Kresh Prime slowly rebuilt under galactic supervision. The Kresh were forbidden from having a military beyond simple police forces. Their weapons factories remained rubble. Their shipyards were dismantled. The species that had once ruled through fear was now barely surviving. But they survived. And Dalrix, who led the civilian government, made sure his people knew the truth about what their empire had done. Schools taught about Sigma-7 and the other victims. Memorials were built. The new generation of Kresh grew up knowing that their ancestors had been monsters, and they worked to be better. The 15 species that the Kresh had conquered were all free now. Some of them built monuments to humanity, thanking them for ending the Empire of Terror. Captain Ryan Cole retired from the military after the war. He accepted a teaching position at Earth's Naval Academy, where he lectured on military ethics and the responsibility of power. His classes were always full of young officers who wanted to learn from the man who had led the greatest military campaign in human history. Commander Jake Morrison became the administrator of the rebuilt Sigma-7. The colony was larger now, protected by a full military garrison. But the heart of the colony was its memorial, a black stone wall with the names of all 3,053 victims carved into it. Every year on the anniversary of the attack, Jake stood before that wall. Sometimes he was alone. Sometimes thousands came to remember. He would read the inscription aloud, the words that had been approved by the survivors. They came in peace. They died in violence. Their deaths were avenged. Their memory ensures humanity never forgets the price of mercy without strength. Humanity's place in the galaxy was secure now. No one attacked human colonies. No one threatened human ships. Some species feared humanity. Others respected them. All of them understood that humans were different from every other species they had met. Humans would trade with you. They would work with you. They would help you in times of crisis. But if you attacked them, if you murdered their people, they would come for you with a fury that could shatter worlds. Earth had sent a message to the galaxy, written in fire across Kresh Prime. Humanity protects its own. President Karen Mitchell, in her final address before retiring, spoke about the Kresh War. "We did not want this fight," she said. "We did not ask to become warriors. But when forced to choose between submission and war, humanity chose war. And we won. Let that be a lesson to any who would test us again." But she ended with a hope for peace. "We have shown we can destroy. Now let us show we can build. Let us be known not just for our weapons, but for our friendship. Let us prove that strength and kindness can exist together." Years later, a young Kresh student visited Sigma-7 as part of a cultural exchange program. She stood before the memorial wall, reading the names. Jake found her there, crying. "I'm sorry," she said. "I'm sorry for what my people did." Jake looked at this young alien, born after the war, carrying guilt for crimes she never committed. "You're not responsible for what they did," he told her gently. "But you are responsible for making sure it never happens again." She nodded, wiping her eyes. "I will. I promise." And in that moment, looking at this young Kresh who genuinely wanted to do better, Jake felt something he hadn't felt since before the attack. Hope. The galaxy had changed. Humanity had changed it. And perhaps in the end, that change would lead to something better, something peaceful. But the names on the wall would always remind them of the cost of that peace and the price that had been paid in blood and fire to achieve it.